I got a notification that we just went live, so I guess we're live then.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for coming, and welcome back to Spiritside Chats. Today is the new moon in Libra. Hey, David, you were able to join us. That's great.
Hi, guys.
Welcome. So, plenty of wonderful things to talk about today. But today is the new moon in Libra. Libra is symbolized by this wonderful image here, if you can see it. We'll probably show you a number of these because we have our actual patch tarot deck that came together. But why don't we start off the way that we normally do, and let's do an opening meditation. So, who wants to lead it? Anybody?
It's been a while since you've taken one.
You were missing last week. I took it last week, actually.
Sure, so maybe it's my turn.
I think it's your turn.
Okay. Happy to. All right, everyone, just take a moment right now and just become really aware of your surroundings. You can even take a look at what's around you. As you breathe, becoming more and more aware of what's in the room, what's close to you, the people around you, and just become really present in your environment. Now close your eyes and take a minute to really breathe deeply while still picturing and feeling everything around you. Now instead of observing it with your eyes, you're feeling it with your energy. As you breathe, present in your environment, bring your awareness to the crown of your head. From this perspective, gazing upwards, realize the radiant light that exists infinitely above you. As you inhale, connect with that light. Each and every breath you take, pulling it, calling it, flowing. Just basking in this light. Every breath deeper and lighter than the last. Every thought more connected, more knowing, more loving than the last. Now from this space, remember the energy of your environment, bringing it back to your room. And feel that light still connected within you. You can radiate it out towards your environment, interacting with it, shining that light within you. We'll keep this vision, this picture of this radiating light from within as we open our eyes again, coming back to our environment, consciously aware of our surroundings, while still connected to that divine light from within. So mote it be.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so mote it be. Nice one, brother.
Thank you.
Hey, Joshua.
Sorry, I missed the beginning of this. I'm Joshua.
Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you.
I thought you were going to be driving. This is great. We got you here.
Oh, I'm totally about to be driving.
Cool. Can we have you for a minute and potentially longer if the internet holds out?
Yeah, I'll try to stay on. Let's see. Cool. Thanks, guys. Happy to be here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the topic of today's of call that we've set is on collective healing, and the new moon in Libra really kind of speaks to that and sort of that collective rebalancing of energy and really taking account of where things may be out of balance. There's sometimes it's almost described as almost an imposed rebalancing, like something is going to come along regardless that's going to shift things or break down things that aren't working, specifically so that you can find and create new balance in your life. And so thus then, the topic being healing and realigning our energies. If we be like water and be like air and just go with the flow, allow these changes to take place and see them and watch them, and then we can ride the waves of them rather than being tossed asunder by them, and I'd like to open it up, does off the bat, does anybody have any thoughts or anything they'd like to add or share or talk about in that regard?
Your meditation, Aaron, is a perfect example of that. That's some serious global healing going on right there, collectively. So anyone tuning in is definitely going to be feeling an expression of connection, especially if you're even a slight bit empathic. So it's nice to see that there are easy ways to get into that space. Because realistically speaking, and unless we really get into that space, there really is no such thing as healing. Healing is that space. It's living in that space that is health. So when we can abundantly just be that space that you just created, we are health. And that's why, to go on a bit of a tangent, to speak of healing, I mean, one of the terms in healing is epigenetics, and which is ecosystemic and environmental health in its entirety. So being able to create that space that you just spoke of, we become harbingers of a space, of a beautiful space that we are stewards of. And now that's what real healing is becoming stewards of the space that you just helped everyone create. So steward your space. That's one of the most real, places that we can place our feet, is stewarding that space, and that's what permaculture is all about. It allows us to reconnect physically to the world, because so many of us are very spiritually driven already. Any one of us on the call here is clearly, in some way, shape, or form, deeply spiritual. But being able to ground that spirit to the earth is where it's often one of the biggest challenges, and one of the things that have been pulled asunder, and some other variable that we can come across all sorts of things or reasons why we don't steward our space. But when it comes down to acting in that, permaculture is a great way to do so. And so get your feet on the ground, man. I love how you just brought us there. So that's healing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you. I really like the way that you described that, steward your space as like a mantra. Like that's incredible. I remember a channeling that I listened to way back, like my mom sent it to me like right at the start of my spiritual journey, and he was talking specifically about how like your presence is what creates the space, like how you feel, how you radiate from here, and through all of the centers, but here is the center. Really it dictates and determines everything that happens around you by both what you're emanating and then how you're reacting, which is also an emanation, and then that just the continual feedback of in and out, it's quite remarkable. So thank you for bringing me back there.
Yeah, I would just add, go ahead, Phil.
Cool. There's like a Chinese proverb that talks about how pain shared is halved and joy shared is doubled. So I think the key in healing is about like empathizing with the person who needs to be healed. So like, I think the term compassion literally means like to suffer with. So again, like pain shared is halved. So yeah, you can't really heal someone unless you actually feel what they're feeling. So yeah, that's just my thought, my 2 cents so far.
I have something to go with that, Philip.
Oh,
That is right in line with what I was thinking. Just before we started the call, I was thinking about the topic of collective healing, and I was actually rewatching a collective sexual healing workshop that Jocelyn and Bentino had done, and I had this thought that if we're all one, if we're all connected, then as I heal myself, I heal the collective unconscious. And I do that kind of like what Karen was talking about, by turning and facing my shadow self instead of always avoiding it. I look for my issues and take them in fully, and as I let them go, I can feel their bonds on the collective released as well.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
very morphogenic fields type of thing with Rupert Sheldrake's work and those types of ideations. It's a powerful way to create. Buddhism it's almost like Tonglen in Buddhism, where you sort of breathe in the world and breathe out the joy, and it's a perfect, that's a great way of representing healing. I like that a lot that you bring that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, all of the energetic healing modalities that I'm familiar with go right back to that heart space and that understanding of connectedness, the interconnectedness that we have not only with each other, but with the divine energy that, again, is like permeating this entire reality. And so to me, like, the greatest form of healing comes from just being present with that reality, having, I want to use the expression like faith in that energy and breathing it. And people would refer to this as like regular prayer, regular meditation, just remembering that presence regularly. And to me, that brings healing.
I want to add to that too, of like, I think sensitivity to, well, just for, I guess, really sensitivity in general, because it's not just in or out, it's both, right? Of like, first, sensitivity to your own emotional healing and kind of the, working with the internal traumas or other feelings that you have within you, and which takes a level of care and sensitivity to really like tap into and feel, because so many of us, especially the men in the world, have like, we've just, the way that we're raised and the way the society is we're
Emotionally lacking,
out of sync with it, out of tune with it, and this causes all kinds of problems, in the world. And but then also like that same level of care and sensitivity that you apply and you bring for yourself, you have to have for others who are having the same, the same feeling. And that's how you create that shared, what Philip was talking about was that shared like compassion. Compassion is doubled, and when you share it with someone, it like it lessens it, because you know it and you both know it together and you can go through it together. And it's like, it's in that way that we really demonstrate it, because I mean, as Joshua was saying, when you go and you're healing yourself, you're healing the world subconsciously. But when you're also, once you've gone through that yourself, then you can actually physically bring that to someone and come to someone and help them and help, like, be there for them. And now you're not just doing it from the inside and radiating it out, but you're actually like putting it, like getting it out there to someone else, more like very directly. And I think that Yeah, it just takes that care and that sensitivity. Oh, David. Sorry, you're down because of the muting. Sorry for that.
So, what you're saying, in the military, it's the caring, like empathy is almost devoid of, it's almost devoid in the military. Like
Yeah.
there is very few people who have it. The best leaders are the ones who actually do care for their soldiers. And everyone knows that. Well, most people know that. The ones who understand it know that that's who the best leaders are, and you can tell. But it's like people, like you talk to them, and it's usually really crude humor. Like you probably hear, it's always like every once in a while, some of the guys will just get just stupid and do the whole dead baby jokes, and those are just disgusting. And it's just like horrible humor, and like their mind is just in a totally wrong place, and it always joking about sex, and it's always there, and it's annoying. It is so annoying, and it's like they can't get their mind out of the gutter. And as much as I try to tell them, what's going on around them, they're all asleep. They're all asleep. Like people say, yeah, they're awake. Most of the people who are in the military are awake, but it's only the higher level guys who really understand stuff. The lower level guys, they're dozing off. They don't know what's going on around them. But yeah, so
That's why you're there, David. You're here to bring that light to all these people and have that connection emanate from you. Because if you hold the resonance of really bringing awareness to, we'll say, like, how about suggesting a different form of humor that they might be able to resonate with that's a little bit more appropriate, or like finding ways to moderate that moving forward.
I try. I definitely do my best. They always ask me, why am I always smiling? Because it's something about being Mormon. Mormons are always like happy usually, or always smiling. We're always happy. I am generally. I'm generally a happy guy. I'm just everything's okay. It's like I got that realization that it doesn't matter what I do as long as I try hard. I try to do my best and try to do what I'm supposed to do. As long as I do the right thing, everything will be okay. Whoever you believe is out there, God or someone else, some great spirit, or a guy that's running around as fourth or fifth or sixth density being running around doing stuff, someone who's in the sphere being alliance or something like that. As long as you believe they've got your back, you're trying to do the right thing, and they've kind of got your back, everything will be okay. Everything will be okay.
Well, I want to say too, our field and our intentions are very powerful, and a lot of the general media that would be going around would be doing everything it can to depower the individual and the influences that we have in the world around us, and to affect change and things of that nature. So I want to just presence a little bit of encouragement towards really holding the space for we'll say, like, not allowing that type of energy into your field. And eventually, if your, we'll say, resonance is strong enough, it would get to the point where if those people are making those jokes, they'll see you coming and they'll just naturally not want to make those jokes. I mean, they might prod at you the other way and just make more of them around you, but eventually it'll get to the point where they realize it's not doing anything, and it'll stop.
Yeah.
Well, especially if you kind of are like seen as a role model in their eyes a little bit, they'll look up to you and they'll know,
respect that.
They'll respect you and have that like, it's just like, when he's around, it just doesn't come up because it's not like compatible with your fields.
Hey, David, David, do they ever say that's what she said?
Oh yeah, all the time. That's like the most common phrase is that phrase. And they talk about that because in the Army we have a program called SHARP, and it's sexual harassment and assault, or sexual harassment, assault, response and prevention. But it's a serious program. because people have gotten kicked out of the army, have gotten charges against them for stuff like that. This time they're actually doing something real about it. This time they're actually, and, they had other programs, and those didn't do anything because the people who were in charge of it didn't do anything. And so now they've got something where when someone does something, if they say someone goes and guy ends up raping some girl or something like that, and they get caught, now it's serious charges. They get serious charges brought against them, kicked out of the army, thrown in Leavenworth. They found a few cases where some people who were part of the SHARP program were actually doing what they weren't supposed to be doing. And as soon as they found out about it, they got rid of them, put them in jail. Yeah, and they're doing some serious stuff. So, and one of the things they came up with was sexual harassment includes. That's what she said. And
it does. I mean, and it's interesting because this is I feel like, and I don't think I'm alone in this. Like, this is like the thing that we are collectively healing and pulling up right now, like in a huge way. I mean, like, you go on Facebook or Twitter and like everybody's hashtag Me Too, and it's serious. It's like a huge, it's a very big thing, but it's like, it's so important for everybody to really to see and to look at and take seriously, like. And for this collective healing to take place, because it's something that we all share, whether we think we do or we don't. And this is, I think, the thing that maybe, well, I guess I'm hoping and praying this is like the male energy of the world can really like look at this and take this seriously and see it within themselves too, right? Because it's not just, it's not just all of the women who have been harassed or abused, and but like the men who have either perpetrated it or been a part of it, and like whether they knew it or not, because there really is that line as well of becoming aware of it is like the first step. And once we're aware of it, we can actually make the shifts and recognize, wow, I didn't even know, And then there's other people who, there's a wide array, really, I guess, is what of like.
Hey, Jordan. I just Googled your name recently I Googled your name on Google, and there's like rape allegations against you.
I'm very aware of that, and this is a part of what everything is. Is that
true? Is it true? Or
I want to hop in here and say, like, this is part of the natural progression that goes. If you look at that geometry that we had created, and that seed of the like physical health into emotional health, mental health, and all of that. This is like, now that our society and our world is getting more of that, we'll say like physical, we'll say Maslow's hierarchy of needs, your food, water, shelter, like a lot of the like typical resources now in our society with our generations have been resolved to such a matter that we are now able to appropriately, comfortably look at how have we been emotionally interacting with each other and really create global healing on like the deepest emotional levels that are necessary to really get through all of these things. And eventually that will heal and move further into like really mental health and the connection of the thoughts that we all share and exchange with each other, right down into the spiritual connection and the really true oneness that we share with everyone. And so just again, looking at that whole progression and holding space for all of the experiences that have gone through were set in place so that we could learn through this. And I feel like the amount of information we have is just endless to learn from and move forward.
I want to say, actually, just in this moment, and since you started, really, I'm feeling like this tremendous warmth in my belly. Like, it's a really,
sure.
And I got the sacral shirt on too, with crystal, like sacral crystals, so it's all compounding. But I want to, just speaking to this personally, because I wrote my own Me Too status, because I have experienced this on both sides, and like, if I had known what I was causing when, you know, the experience happened, it never would have happened. And this is part of my story, and what I've learned, and I'm learning. Like, when I found out afterwards about, you know, the way that this person felt, I was devastated. I had no idea that this was, and it drew me in to look at myself and tear myself apart. Like, I was torn up that I facilitated that. And then also, like, looking at my story in my life, I also experienced sort of a similar thing on the other side, actually, of consenting to something that I didn't always really want to do. Sometimes I did, but sometimes I didn't, and I could see what that did to me by agreeing to that. And I mean, it's all so relative. Like, when I'm looking and I'm reading some of the stories, you know, like some of them are just incomparable, the way that so many women have been treated. But I've also seen in people in general, it's true. But I also like, because I, you know, when I wrote my piece on Facebook, I had a number of dear friends of mine also share very similar stories, and being like, I basically said, like, they said, like, they did the same thing. They had no idea. And so I feel like on the lighter end of the spectrum, this is sort of what's happening, at least through me and the people that I've been talking to and whatnot, is really like going deep and resolving and healing, and we're bringing healing to these spaces within and without. And, like, you know, every day I am actually praying for healing with this person in particular, but anybody who I've hurt unconsciously or without knowing, because that was never my intention. And all of my actions came from love or excitement and joy, and it just didn't translate from one to the other, right? It was like jamming a square peg into a round hole. And so, you know, this is part of what we're going through. And I think, like, it's not, sorry?
Bad analogy.
it's I mean, I'm in this particular case, Nicholas, and what you brought up, is like a focal point for people, but it shouldn't be the stopping point. It should be the point that we can look at and go, okay, how does this apply to everybody? And obviously, by the hashtag Me Too, it's really, it's clear it's not just me. This is something that we're all going through.
I want to bring back that, was it like Andy Weir who had written The Egg, that short story?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of it. The one where you sort of like look at the perspective of every other soul in humanity is just you in another incarnation. So all of the people that have hurt you was you hurting yourself, and all of the people that you have hurt is still you hurting yourself. And every time you go through an incarnation, you get that remembrance of that bigger picture, so that you can take that energy down here with you again and realize that we can create this like co-harmony and actually like create heaven on earth, because that's not only possible but supposed to happen.
It's how we do it. I mean, the basis, and actually bringing it to tarot a little bit, is like the Three of Swords is suffering. It's sorrow in many decks. It shows heartbreak, but it's kind of the first time there's any ever pain in any card, in any sequence, in all the minor arcana. And it really describes, it's not a bad reading, it's not a bad, like, a reversal or anything like that, but it really describes that the reason that there is suffering is in order so that you can have that polarity, you can experience love on the other side, you can experience healing, but you can't experience healing if there's nothing to heal. And so it's sort of a built-in sort of thing.
You have like a shout out from the comments?
There's a good question.
Yeah.
By someone named Rosemary.
Yeah.
They were describing how they felt uncomfortable healing in public places, I guess, like in
group healing classes.
Right, and
like, okay,
they feel uncomfortable, like how to deal with overwhelming experiences and like how to do that in a public space.
Oh,
and I thought that was a good
thing.
So I wanted to bring it to the
got an
table.
answer to
And
that.
hello, I love you all.
Welcome.
Hey, Drea.
Hello. Is Joshua Daniel here?
Joshua Daniel's
Do you
here.
have a mic?
He does. I don't know if he can. I mean, if Joshua, if you're there.
Yeah.
Hey.
What's up, Drea?
Hi, Joshua. I love you. We need to
Love
have
you, bro.
a call sometime.
Good to see you on screen here. Maybe I can get a camera on. A little thing.
So good.
Just don't do what I'm doing.
What are you guys gonna do for Halloween?
It's a bit of, yeah, let's keep on the
Answer that
focus.
question.
We're gonna
I'm
Thank you so much, Dan.
We'll ask the Halloween question after.
We'll get to that. Benoit, welcome also.
Hello.
So we just, yeah, okay, so, and for Benoit who just joined, and for anybody who's jumping in, there's a question in the audience. How do you heal in public, like healing in like healing circles or like group therapy and stuff like that?
I want to say you find what works individually, uniquely for you. All of us have, if you look at most of the psychology behind typology, we all have different personalities, different ways of healing. Some of us need to go more alone time, others need more community sort of healing group energy. There's a balance between them. It's sort of about finding what really works more specifically for you. I want to say for my own personal experiences, what helped for me the most was going through doing a lot of mantras and doing a lot of sort of individual meditation practices where I just really went through. One of them specifically is called the 22 Masks of the Ego. It's taught by Mahadria, and it just individually looks at emotionally difficult situations one at a time, and you just sit there, induce the experience, and go through it. Feel what it actually feels like to relive some of those experiences so that you can find the lessons in them, so that you can learn through those experiences and really get the bigger picture of the good and the bad and the bad and the good enough that you can move forward with it with a little bit more conviction that it was, again, like a learning experience, a positive experience, as opposed to a traumatic experience or a negative experience or an experience that's more harmful than beneficial in that regard. Mm-hmm. So like that's just the way, like what worked for me more specifically, but my suggestion in that regard is be willing to like listen to what your heart's saying you need, because most time you would honestly ask yourself the question of like, what's the best thing I should do right now to really feel this? You'll probably have a couple thoughts or a couple feelings that come up almost right away of like, go look for a class or go do some meditations, and like really just tuning in on what your inner self is saying is the best thing to do. Because I want to say group sharing on that regard ain't for everyone.
Mm-hmm. I have something I want to throw in.
Please, yeah, take it away.
I was taking a class on spiritual fitness last night, and the teacher brought up something that I've known for years, but the way they said it was really helpful. And it was, if you're feeling bad, most likely you're not feeling your own energy, because your own energy is source energy. It's bliss, it's peace, it's joy. So when you're feeling bad, it's your empathic awareness may be too wide open to where you're picking up something else. And so if you're having problems with healing in group situations because you're getting overwhelmed, you could do something like my teacher taught me years ago, which was to imagine a non-conductive layer covering yourself and then opening just a small portal within it so that you could reach through and only allow what you want in and out. And that really helps when there's a lot of different energy fields around you interacting with your own.
Right. Sometimes like it's like the, you know, the groups are variable. Groups could be 2 or to infinity with the amount of people involved. So like there's usually a sweet spot, you know, like if you go to a group and you're not feeling it because there's 10 people, can't really like open up and have a healing experience. But if you, on the other side, you know, like if you found that one person who would listen to you and help you work through your challenge, you know, like, or 2 people, or, you know, close family member, just someone you trust, or even just like a small workshop, you know, like the same kind of energy, but like more focused. That might be more helpful, you know, so that you can like let down your walls and actually like experience a bit of sharing. Because that's sort of, you know, going back to what Philip said, is like when you're with others in that kind of communal healing, sharing environment, like everybody is lifted, and the pain is lessened together. And so, going off and meditating on your own for a long time is definitely a path. But I think that there's tremendous value that we can't forget about that comes from this community energy. But we have to be able to do that in a comfortable environment. Like you can't just like run out on the street and be like, hi, I feel terrible to like some random stranger, unless it just kind of happens really naturally. And it's like that with everything really, just the blending shared energy with each other.
I would agree with that. The idea that, as we're in a group, our energy systems begin to interact and entangle, so that as one person has a healing, all experience it. And that's why it's really great to come into a group of people such as ourselves, even over a remote distance. We all feel uplifted after these chats because we're all entangling our own consciousnesses to this higher vibration. And everyone that watches is doing the same. And so we get that little bump in our vibrational alignment, and every realization that each one of us has fractals out.
Well said.
I don't mean to derail it, but you said consciousnesses, and I was wondering if like plural consciousness be conscious I, consciousness.
Yeah.
Semantics.
But no, that was really well said though, really.
One, if I may.
Take it away, brother.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi, Aaron, and Jordan, and everyone else. Yeah, something that I've found is very important in the healing and the sharing is, and this is actually something that you had posted not long ago, Jordan, about if you want to receive water, you have to give water.
Yeah.
And it's about holding space for others. And I feel as though if one can truly listen and hold space for another, there's so much that can be transferred just from that kind of interaction than there is about speaking about your own goings on and your own experience. And that's something that I've really been taking to heart, and I've found is extremely beneficial. But of course, it always needs to be reciprocated in a way. If not with the same person, then like you said, finding that person who is willing to hold the space for you and to let you share. Because once we share our stories, we activate all of these unknown links, that are deep in our unconscious, subconscious, and that will help to bring something forth that you may not have even known was an issue that you wanted to talk about. And so just holding space for other people allows for their story to really touch you and to mean something for you. I've been in groups where healing is the goal, but it's always people wanting to speak all the time. And, oh, this is what I went through. Oh, and this is what I've done. And this is what I've realized, and et cetera, et cetera. But then it's very dissonant. And so I've taken the time, and I know that it's kind of taxing in a way to hold space for people all the time. But when I'm active in holding space, which is a passive action, I guess, and I find balance in that, it allows for the flow. And I don't expect others to hold the space for me, but I make sure to find people that can do that for me when it is necessary. So it's a discovery, and it's kind of a journey of exploration and finding those people that you can help in that way, and that can help you in that way.
Like the equation's got a balance, really, right? Like if it's not, yeah.
But it's not always like just two people that can do that. Sometimes I'm holding space for people who I know can't really hold space for me, but I don't expect them to. And so I go through the process with them, and it helps me in that way. But it's a different process to go through when I need someone else to hold space for me.
And of course, always asking someone to do that for you is good beforehand, so that it doesn't become too heavy for the other person. Which I often find myself in that position of, I've been holding space so much that people will come and say, oh my gosh, I have problems, even if I'm not necessarily in a place to be able to receive that and to hold space for them. And then it becomes very taxing for me. So it's about knowing how beneficial that can be for the healing process, but also the potential for the opposite to happen as well. So just being aware of that energetic flow, so that you can make conscious decisions about sharing and holding space.
That's so beautifully said. Thank you. Thank you.
Cool.
Oh, David, you have a question?
Yeah, well, I was just wondering, has anyone heard of the Terramai?
Sorry, the what? We seem to have lost your mic. Or your back?
Have you heard of the Terramai?
We're like losing you right on the point when you're saying the subject.
Terramai Healing Network?
Terramaya Healing Network?
Yeah, Terramai.
No, I haven't. Can't say that I have.
There's this lady, met her before, and she's apparently pretty big in the spiritual realm of stuff, like maybe Wiccan or something. But she set up this network where people will like meditate for healing into like a network that it's just like a space. They just put this healing out, get some healing, can tap into it, and they do it on like Wednesdays. And I tried. She told me how to do it. It was like you I forget how it is, but you meditate. You just kind of focus on it, and like when you tap into it, you feel this like rush coming over you, and it's pretty crazy how it works. But it like it's meant to heal whatever's ailing you at the time. So I was just wondering if anyone had heard that. It's kind of like a mass healing thing.
No, I haven't. Just me.
Yeah. So if you look it up, I'll try type it in a chat or something if I can. Maybe a Slack chat or something.
Cool.
Yeah, let's see. But yeah, I just thought I'd put that in there.
Nice.
I was reminded of I really love the Celestine prophecies and some of the insights that they had talked about in there, but I do remember one of the first introductory ones was just sort of the appreciation of beauty in general as a way to increase your vibration and help bring healing, just as like a complete side topic, but kind of like bringing it back to that initial meditation that we were doing where you're bringing your awareness to your environment and things around us. I had to presence that because I want to appreciate the sunset that's going on just outside our window right now. It's actually like super gorgeous out there, but it is kind of getting darker here if you're not noticing, but that's why. But I had to kind of like bring it back around to that because it's just those little things sometimes. Got to appreciate them. It's important.
Appreciating beauty.
But I do want to really thank you for sharing, Benoit. Your story there was like really great, and holding the presence in the space to genuinely listen to a person, to really share that experience with them and make sure that that connection is there, and have people in your life that are willing to create that space with you, and really bringing that resonance and that awareness to like the importance we play in each other's lives for being willing and able to hold space for each other, and the importance of having those relationships. I think that's a really key thing. Thanks for touching on that.
I was going to add quickly the importance of recognizing that and appreciating it, sharing appreciation for that when you recognize it, because it's not something that's explicit. You have to kind of find a way to bring and honor that in other people, and it really means a lot when people tell me, thanks so much for listening, or thanks so much for holding space, or for sharing with me. So bringing attention to it too.
I want to thank you so much. I mean, I wanted to, when you were describing that, it reminded me back of kind of my traveling around the States days, to a time when I remember just being at like a gathering, you know, like around a campfire kind of thing, and there was like lots of little pockets of groups of people and stuff like that. You know, usually there's like a central thing, but there's lots of little other groups, and I remember like a friend of mine just like had a guitar, and he's just, you know, and just kind of sitting really calmly, comfortably, just like playing something like really gentle and really but like it was like through his presence and through the guitar, you know, he wasn't imposing this music, he was like holding space so that like other people could have these meaningful and intimate conversations around the campfire and stuff like that. And like that additional presence, you know, of the music and everything just like created the atmosphere for the healing conversations to take place. And so it's like, even if you want to hold space, but you're not necessarily in the position to really like help someone work through the, you know, let's say someone's going through a deep emotional thing and you're just not vibing on the same level, you can hold space in other ways. And like just tapping into that, you know, whatever is the most natural in that moment can be, again, just so like playing a little djembe drum kind of thing, you know, just something gentle or whatever. It can facilitate. It's just an added ingredient to the overarching geometry of what's taking place. It doesn't always have to look like this or that, but
music is very healing.
Music is.
That's it.
Yeah.
Bringing musicality and harmony into all of this is very, very powerful.
Yeah, I love the fact that you brought up music, because I myself, I mean, I think more than almost anything I can think of, music has been like the prime healing factor in my life. And when we talk about like sharing with others being a very healing thing, for me, like when I tap into like the collective music, like the muse, not only are the musicians that are creating that music healing themselves, but they're also healing everybody who's listening to them. And then I'll even just like, you know, I'll sing along and I'll be like singing to like God or spirit, if you will, and I'm like, God, thank you for listening to me sing right now, because that's very healing. Like that's definitely been one of the biggest healing factors in my life. Even if you don't think anybody's listening to you sing, the universe is always listening, right? So
you're radiating.
Beautiful.
I can speak to that and say, like, I made a video about it, actually. I think it was in like the New Year's video or something, that just honoring. Oh, also, sorry, Philip, we got just a little feedback there, but like last year, I went through just waves of inner healing, and it was actually thanks to the music of Elijah Ray, that just like over and over, every song just touched my heart, healed my body, like just captivated my mind, and like facilitated. It was the facilitation of the space for healing. And like, it's one of my highest recommendations for anybody watching who hasn't heard of Elijah Ray. Go and check him out on Bandcamp. I just have to give that credit.
I want to say too, Elijah, if you do ever end up watching this at some point in time, the amount of times Jordan listened to your songs on repeat is like consecutive hours of Elijah Ray.
I can
vouch for that.
I just put on Soundlight while I sleep. I mean, it's so beautiful. I mean, and there's a space for there's music for dancing. There's music for like going into like deep psychedelic meditations. You know, there's so many different things that he creates. So I just like that man. I have a man crush on him. Really, he's amazing.
Good.
But Morgan, welcome to the call. It's good to see you.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. Good. Well.
Yeah, glad to be able to join.
Good to see you. Good to have you.
I've been watching on the YouTubes.
I hope that it was enjoyable. I don't really know what to say. I'm sorry.
Like our Kabbalah series,
or you mean this call?
When I was driving down, I was watching you guys. You know.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you're all caught up.
He's like kind of doing rings in his little square yard there.
It's a lot warmer there than it does here. We've already had our first snow already, like, Canada.
It was really thin and it went away after an hour or two, but
yeah,
it was nice.
Yeah, it's still got to be like 80 or something.
But before we lose any, like, all the trains of thought, I want to let's like just again open it up and like ask you know, for everybody in this chat, or potentially even any questions, and Drea can send us the messages. You know, like, are there any, like, what's kind of coming to mind, you know, in the accumulation of this whole conversation and everything like that? If Eddie or Joshua or anybody has any thoughts so far.
I've got a thought, if you don't mind. You guys able to hear me all right?
Yeah, you got a bit of car sounds in the background, but I think we can do it.
Yeah, my windows don't have a great seal. Sorry.
That's all good.
Bit of I know we self-heal.
Oh, we're sorry, Joshua. It's actually just started breaking up. We can't really hear you anymore. Which is sad, because I really wanted to know what you had to say. I think we might have just lost him completely. Oh, maybe you're back.
Yeah, maybe we can hold it for next time.
Potentially. I mean, you just got back. Like, you might have just gone through a
little first. I heard that.
All right. I'll make it quick. Interrupt me if I cut out.
Okay.
I think that for us, it's really important to, and I'm just emphasizing this, that we listen when we're dealing with healing somebody. We really listen, because people generally have the keys to heal themselves, and generally they're not able to receive healing from a person. Like, they need to create it for themselves, but it needs to be facilitated by a person. So you really got to listen. You really got to make sure the consent is there, and then even more than just like a yes, I will receive this. Have their well-being and have their comfort in mind, and watch them, see if they're overextending for it, and make sure that the cost of the lesson doesn't.
Okay, we just started losing you again, but we heard most of, like, all up until that point, and definitely resonate with everything you said. Because it's yeah, no, I mean, everybody has that capacity within them, and so it's not, yeah, like you said, like, it's not you healing someone, it's you creating the space for them to create that healing within themselves. He's probably
yeah, and just really listen and make sure that it's comfortable for them, and make sure it's what they want, and and don't make it about you as best you can. Don't even make it about your fear of becoming, that bad version of yourself or something. Step into a space where you're authentically caring about them, which means you have to be healthy. You have to not be worried about your own well-being. Be grounded, centered, healthy, and only offer as much as they want.
I have had similar sort of experiences where I had individuals in my life that were coming to me very stressed about a lot of the things that are going on in their life. And I would be very quick to identify like 4 or 5 potential solutions that could fix their problem right away. Correct this behavior, do this or that. But every time I would try and suggest all of the potential things to fix the problem, it was always like met with resistance. It was never actually what they wanted. And it became very clear and apparent to me that the only thing that they actually really wanted was a person to listen to, a person to share the experience with, and a person to empathize with. They didn't want the solution. They already knew what to do. They didn't want to have another person to tell them what to do. They instead just wanted to facilitate the sharing and the experience, the genuine listening, and having a person have that to create that healing space. And so, like, I totally understand and have had similar experiences where sometimes it's the best way to facilitate, create that environment of healing is really just to listen, and again, make sure that that's what they actually need, and help facilitate them in that way of like really tuning in. What do they need, and how can you provide that?
Oh, we just got a question from the chat. Frank Luong, can we talk about what actions we are doing to raise consciousness? I think we are. I mean, here's part of the thing, right? It's like all of the actions that you do to raise consciousness come from the inner energies first. Like you can't take a physical action that's not based on an internal experience or an internal feeling or thought or willpower or the collective accumulation of all of those. And so the act of raising your consciousness, like the physical act of raising consciousness, is actually the inner act of raising your consciousness, which then translates into physical actions. And then those things just happen naturally, like through your heightened state of awareness, you know what the right thing is to do in any particular moment. Or that's sort of the goal, is continually improving upon knowing what to do in the moment. Because sometimes, you know, you'll say, like, you walk past you know, a person on the street and they're asking for money or something, and in that moment you're like, I don't have anything in the moment, right, or whatever, and you just keep walking. And then right afterwards, you know, you're down the street, you're like, I could have just stopped and had a conversation with them, you know, and like that would have been acting from within that space if that was right in that moment, you know, if that would have clicked. And that's where, and we're coming back to the, you know, the same topic we have over and over, is listening. Like, and not just listening to what someone else thinks, but listening to what's really happening and going on in here. Because the more sensitive that you are, the more in tune that you are to what's happening in, like, I can't even point because it's not just in here, it's like it's invisible, and it's all around, but it is in here. The more in tune we are to that, the more capable we are of taking the actions that are in alignment with our higher selves, the actions that raise consciousness and lift up the world. That can only happen when we deal with this inner world first. And actually, this is really good, because there was a comment on YouTube once on one of the recent Kabbalah videos, because we said this, you know, in the nature of Kabbalah is like everything physical is the reflection of the invisible forces of nature. And someone was like, well, but isn't it like, you know, like both, like, you know, the physical actions affects the invisible? Yes, but only in the sense that it is like a mirror. And like you looking into a mirror, and I can kind of use this as even just like me looking into the computer screen, I'm seeing myself, right? Like I'm observing the reflection and like making adjustments based on that. So if you see something physically, either within yourself or within the world, that you don't like, that is a reflection of something that you can adjust and work with internally. But like just taking the physical action, especially if it's taken from a place inside that's impure, or like you're like, you know, well, like this is, there's sort of a common theme or joke or idea around, you know, certain people becoming religious just because they want to be saved. But it's, you know, it's like, well, I don't really believe in God, but I want to be saved, so I'm gonna just, you know, go to the church just to make sure I get into heaven, you know, like that energy, like that does nothing to bring you closer to God. That does nothing to heal your soul and bring you and uplift you, because inside you're doing it for the wrong reason. And so we have to address the internal first. We have to go deep within ourselves, pull up and uproot all of the things that aren't working, and plant genuinely pure and honest seeds, and nurture those and grow those, and then that becomes the basis of who you are.
Yeah, doing the right thing as if that was the only way you ever could act, you know.
Very well said. Like I can't even imagine acting any other way than that sort of thing, you know. So I hope I answered your question, Frank Luong, and if anybody else has anything to add, please take it away now. Thank you.
It's a very generic question.
Well, I mean, I hope I like that's my perspective, anyways. I mean, it's become more and more clear to me, especially in this last year, that you know, like we can profoundly affect and change the world by profoundly affecting ourselves, because it's through us that this whole thing happens. Like we're it's like you have to imagine, like, you know, we're a giant torus, but then each individual of us are our own toruses, right? And so like the more closer that we get to the center of our own field, then like the more we bring that collective awareness, the collective torus, into that center point. We just got another message. This is from Karen. I was wondering if they could mention a little bit of what shadow self-healing work within the space self-healing contributing to the collective. If they could mention it. And it's a little wordy in my brain. Hold on. Shadow self-healing work within the space self-healing contributing to the collective. You know,
could I take a shot at this, Jordan?
Take it. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so I think what she's talking about is there a way that dealing with your own shadow can contribute on the collective healing path, you know, specifically collective healing through working on yourself method. I think it's bomb in the way that it's grounded in reality, is that what you're doing is you're facilitating authenticity around negativity, especially things that we could be ashamed or guilty about. By doing so, you set a good example, you model good behavior for dealing with that kind of thing. And that's what a lot of people need, is just a good model of how to deal with their internal strife, what people would call their shadow. And with a good model, a lot of people will jump on board. Not everybody, but a lot will. And we could do great work with that.
I'd love to sort of like bridge those two concepts of the previous question, this question together, by saying sort of like Christ consciousness and dealing with the shadow self and that nature. When you look at the concept of what are we doing to, we'll say, like raise our consciousness to mirror something closer to that of, I want to use the expression heaven on earth, we can, looking at our actions and looking at like the literal concept of what would Christ do? How would Christ act? What thoughts would he do or they do? Or like how would they embody greater love, greater forgiveness, and looking at our actions and how we can do that. And then my experiences with the shadow self was looking at then, okay, if I can choose to embody this Christ-like behavior, then what is the part of me that's actively trying to almost want to do the opposite of that? Like where's, like, if there is a shadow side in my consciousness that wants to interfere or wouldn't do what I perceive this Christ-like energy to behave like where does that come from within me? And I took a deep practice once, like in meditation, to try and bring that energy to the surface and to try and put a name to it, to put a vision or an embodiment of what that negative shadow side would be like, and then genuinely gave that part of me and my consciousness love and forgiveness, and gave it like real genuine compassion, tried to understand like where that shadow side came from, to empathize with its own story, to like listen to it and try and figure out how to create healing in that space. And in that particular meditation, I went down to this like extremely heavy and negative sort of an environment. And then from that space, I reconnected with the light that came from within and almost helped my shadow find its own light again, and brought that awareness back up to like this level and says, okay, well, you know what? I realize that I'm going to have, we'll say, an ego. I have a human self that could potentially have this shadow. But I've identified and accepted the relationship I have with it now, where if I realize that it's not doing something that would be Christ-like or in that vibration, I can interact with it and go like, no, we're doing the right thing, and re-correct and curb that behavior by embodying greater love and greater forgiveness and understanding truly of where these aspects of ourself came from through deep inner meditations. Right?
I actually find that when dealing with the shadow self, it seems to be kind of like experimenting. I don't know if it makes any sense, but like to explore the areas where normally someone would say, no, this is something that goes against positive trend. To choose the negative to see what would happen, it's kind of a wager to determine kind of self growth for experiencing something that the rest of people wouldn't normally experience.
I hear you.
It's very familiar to and this kind of goes to the tarot. The reversals on in tarot, or at least in patch tarot, are related to what is called the qliphote or qliphote, or the translation is always a little, because it's coming from Hebrew, but sometimes it's keliphote. But the idea is these, like, basically the shells, which kind of act as almost like this, like, polarized evil barrier that we have to, like, overcome in order to experience this pure emanation of God. But it's also described as, like, sort of the basis of evil. There's, you basically have, like, your 10 Sefirot, and then you have sort of the 10 antithesis, or like the negative or evil versions of each one. What's really interesting is, like, when you look it up in today's world and you search on the internet, you find nothing but, like, these are, like, the dark spirits of the universe that are controlling and destroying reality, and, like, this terrible just, like, horrible. And it is, like, that's the idea of them, right? But when you actually, like, look at what they all are, you can relate them very easily to all of basically the different aspects of the ego, and the different layers that we have to work through within ourselves. And so, an example, if I just pick up, like, this is a card off the top of the deck here, and we have our first ever complete patch tarot deck for the first time. So we'll probably talk about these in a minute. But, like, first card off the top is Victory, and I'll just hold this card up for a second. But one of the things that we have, autofocus working, sort of.
Oh God, for a second.
It was almost there. I don't know. Either way, you can kind of see it. Maybe I'll pull it back. Either way, it's a guy on a horse. He's got a big heart thing. It's the 6 of Wands, and we have what's called the upright and reverse keys in these tarot. So, like, in patch tarot. So, like, we're trying to, or at least the intention was to try and make them very easily understandable to anybody. And even if you're completely new to the thing. And so, like, the upright key for this one, like, the core idea of this card is victory. But reversed, you turn it over upside down and it says egoism. So that would be related to then, like, because the 6 sits on Tiferet, on the tree of life, right? Which is that Christ consciousness kind of center. But then, like, sort of the opposite, or the negative version of that Christ consciousness illumination, is the hiding and the concealment of that which is pure and holy, right? So then you have to relate that also to the element and, like, the numerology and everything like that. And so, like, the victory of the soul, because this is and the victory of the spiritual will, because this is the fire element. The reverse of this is, like, your ego getting full of itself, hiding the spiritual, like the pureness of the element, because it's being concealed now by this like I'm the best kind of ego energy. And so, like, we can relate them very, very, very easily then to the different aspects of ourselves that we have to work through and resolve and, like, heal within. And it doesn't have to be so scary. So I guess just to relate back to Morgan, you were saying, like, using it as an experiment. There was one book that I read, which was she wrote about it at the very end in Dion Fortune's The Mystical Kabbalah book. And at the very end of that book, she's talking about the qliphote, and she talks about them from the perspective of, like, you can, if you know what you're doing, you can, like, almost like a chemistry experiment. You can, like, create a reaction within yourself and facilitate the counterbalance of that without having to get lost. Like, you can facilitate egoism, for example, with the card, and then immediately
transmutation and alchemy,
counterbalance it. Right, exactly. So that it's no longer a problem. Like, it's basically a controlled experiment. You the spirit, the soul, like you, who you really are, is in control of these elements that you're working, and it doesn't have to be, you know, like getting lost to your ego, you know, which would probably be the, if it wasn't an experiment and you just threw, you know, haphazardly yourself into.
But yeah, if it's transmutation and pushing it through one direction, you know, and then turning it into its opposite effect, then yeah, it does kind of rebuild the aspects of you that are kind of lost. And through to find those aspects, it's kind of like the back door to resolving things, than to just say, oh, I'm just going to be happy about it all the time. Then you can kind of go around that and say, well, then I'm going to be upset and I'm going to do this, but the reason why I did it is this. So the effect then comes into the forefront. You can kind of discern and say, okay, now I know what will happen if I do this. I'm not going to do this again.
Yeah,
It's better than just saying, oh, I'm just not going to do this. But
that's a really good point.
I don't know.
That's something I've thought of.
It's experimentation.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've thought about a lot, is like, why does darkness exist? And so that's what we're getting into right here. But like, it's a really great point that you bring up. What was your name again?
Morgan?
Morgan.
Morgan, yeah. This idea of experimentation, and like once you experience the dark, then you realize why it is dark and why it's, I guess, unfavorable. And then you can, but you have to experience it to realize, you know, why it is that way. And then you can learn from that and grow. So yeah, that's...
Yeah, there's a lot of like miasma, like illusion and stuff that you kind of perceive to be true, but it really isn't. And by discerning that, is you kind of almost have to experiment on yourself.
From that perspective, I mean, this whole entire reality field, you know, is a bit of an experiment. With, I mean, hi, Shell. Wonderful to have Sophia.
Hi, guys.
This is great. We're talking about collective healing, actually, and just talking about, like, I mean, in this moment, we're kind of at, you know, like the how do we even summarize collective healing? We're talking about
making sense of our experiences, I want to say.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just on that topic, I mean, you just jumped in, and we're so happy to have you. Do you have anything that you want to just like kind of jump in with on the topic of healing, emotional healing, and
what worked for you?
And yeah, anything like that?
Actually, that's a really interesting topic. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I've always viewed it as the internal world is the real world, and the external world is the projection of that internal world. And so the best thing you can do is heal your own self, soul, body, mind, spirit, and that elevates everyone around you, focusing on making sure that you're at peace and you're balanced, and that you're compassionately choosing what you put into your body and what you surround yourself with, and you actively work to heal that part of who each of us is, allows it to heal the collective as a whole. That is the thing that's always been, for me, when I think of healing and collective healing specifically, it has to start with the self, and then it, like wildfire, spreads to everything else, everyone else, and every other part of the soul being that we all are aspects of.
So very well said.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's since I have no idea what you guys talked about before. I hope that fits in.
It very much does. Yeah.
I wanted to put something out. Let's see. Eddie, I wanted to see if I could. I think I talked to you like a couple weeks back we kind of had our own little conversation, right? I think that was you, right? You're muted right now, so
yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk to you offline if possible, like at another time. So or something. Yeah, because kind of discuss some things, kind of see if we could make something happen. I don't know. All right, but yeah, so I just wanted to put that out.
This is beautiful. So,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe this is a good chance to chat here, and I think that one of the reasons why I love these calls is that often I can just sit back and enjoy everyone bringing up all these little nuggets of wisdom, and there's nothing that needs to be said. It's a beautiful cycle of so much passion and beauty and all these characteristics that we want to live through us virtuously on a daily basis. So as we negotiate the waters of virtue and really bring it back to this place of healing that we really want to embrace today, really it's bringing it back to basics and just being real. Being and real can be unpacked in so many ways, like authentic, like transparent, like truthful, like listening. We've already spoken about listening this evening and being able to be alive to our own self in this moment. You know, it's very important to listen to self and see that mirror of other in our world, as you guys have so eloquently placed tonight. You know, so much has been spoken already. To even if we were to unpack 10 minutes of this conversation and go and just take 10 minutes, Google it all, and really get good at that, that alone will change your life if you're looking for healing. Now, the other thing that I wanted to sort of mention is that we're speaking right now from the place of the wound. If we could also speak from the place of the already being healed, the already I am, that's a very different type of conversation as well, because now what we're doing is we're speaking from the up down, to Jordan's point, where we're now from Kether down instead of from the physicality up. So if we speak from the I am, we're already healed in that space. That brings a different type of energy, because it allows us to be in the, well, like Abraham Hicks and all these other types of channels like to speak about, you know, just being in that vortex, being in our in the manifested, or in the resonant reality first, being there first, because that is what imprints upon to reality. So living from that place forward is what real healing really is, and that's what any saint or sage or Jordan or Aaron or any one of us who, you know, do this work every day. It's what is the truth here. So, you know, when it comes down to being able to be in the space from the top down, manifesting reality as the dualism that is our lives, but from that singularity, that's where we really have true healing. That's what healing is, and that's what you really are anyways. Sure, there's always this dualistic notion while we're having this physical experience, and it's very real, tangible. Most people will start to illustrate these ideas. Well, where's the physical proof of the ability to transcend this tree of knowledge, this tree of life, this representation of reality that so many spiritual circles say? Where's the proof of this? And that often is the resonation of the physical body, the thing that doesn't sense or feel beyond that space. And it's okay to be there. It's okay to live there. But if you want to transcend there, then questions are simply different. It's, how do I live through a lighter angle? Really, how do I sense, like Aaron, you just introduced the whole world in this call to the idea of being in your space. Just be in that higher space. Be there, live in that light. Let that permeate you. Let yourself be in the room and not look at the thing, but be part of the thing. Feel the thing, and let it live with you. And that's just the basics of being alive in a world where healing is the inherent first place. That's where we come from. That's what we are. We're not trying to get healed. We're just simply trying to be healed, because that's what we are. So that's what collective healing is. It's just being that healed thing that you already are. Now, that comes with action. So it's not just about the ephemeral notions here. It comes with action, and that action is get aligned with life, eat healthier, breathe healthy, drink good water, you know, and be nourished, meditate, get control, get a certain level of influence over your mind and your emotions. These are action steps, yes, but the neutral parties are the B aspects. And well, Tarot is coming out, and we're going to speak about that clearly in a minute here. There are, well, and I mean that with the most devotion I can, because when it comes to being able to get to these places of both action and or the space and the doer and the deed, or the space and that which is being acted through that space. So holding space was a big conversation today. Part of the conversation, holding space, is also holding space for just beingness and DIM. So there's the action of taking charge of your life and doing the things, get the research done, take the advice of the people that you know that are trustworthy. Also being in the I am, because that's what will continually guide you to those places through that providential sort of suite of miracles, for lack of a better term, that allow you to travel through that space. So I guess I just took the mic there for a second, just dropped that now, and
Thank
you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
That was fantastic.
I just want to give you the biggest hug. I'm really jealous because Dria's gonna come out and get to meet you pretty soon.
Yes. Oh my gosh, she's gonna get such a big squeeze. So don't be jealous. Don't be jealous. We have the bromance going on here. I get it.
Yeah. You're like my philosophical Elijah Ray.
But yeah, I guess this is a great segue then to talk about the fact that our Patch Tarot online card directory has officially been completed, like put together. There's still like a couple little updates, like a final pass and some tweaks that are gonna go through it yet before it's actually like fully live and published. But to our patrons, you can find the link to the card directory. It's already been sent to you either through Slack or through your Patreon messages. So you can log in there and actually go through every single one of the cards. You can see the images of what they look like, the keys that we've been talking about, their astrological signatures, the like Kabbalah reference. There's like micro descriptions and micro readings, as well as full expanded descriptions, reversal readings, how to correct the reversal energy, and all the sources. So like it's been quite a lot to compile all this information uniquely for, in our deck, there's a few bonus cards, so not just 78 for a standard tarot deck, there's 82 in ours. So to put this catalog of information together and then publish it and get it out there has been like quite a large project, but it's at least in, like, I want to call it beta testing. Like it's out there if you know how to find it.
And if you want to see them anyways, and you're not a patron, if you're not a Patreon or a patron, you can pledge 1 penny, and that link will be available to you. It's just available for anybody on there. So. But stay tuned, because the whole thing will become public probably in the next week, very soon. Yeah. So yeah, no, I mean we have this deck here, and this was sort of our first test deck that we got, and it's like fully a thing and fully available. I guess you can only see the borders. Yeah. I mean, it's too much to like go through each one, but there's just so many. I mean, here's the Magician, right? Like, so just to give you an idea of focus. Come on. No. Okay. Well, you can pretend that you can see imagine.
It's still focusing on his face, and so it still sees yeah. They hold 2 of them up. Maybe.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Oh. It's trying to. It's seeing your face.
We have to talk.
We have to talk, and you have to stop. There we go. So there's one. There's one of many cards. I mean, here's another example. If you want to hold this one up, we'll do this one. This is the King of Cups. We went with the sort of the traditional prince, princess, queen, king. You know, didn't get messed up into the whole knights and the pages, and we just made it really simple.
This one should obviously be recognizable by this point in time.
That's the 2 of discs. That's actually our cover photo on Facebook. Or no, the profile picture or whatever. Show the back. People are asking to see the back. So there you go. So that is the back of the cards, which is actually really cool, because when you look at like the top of the cards on the whole deck, it looks like this, very rainbowy, which is very cool. And then it's like, yeah, it's like all white on the bottom. It's kind of actually it was very inspired by Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. Very but instead of like the prism, it's Tiferet, the center of the tree of life. That's like being the prism.
You should show them the holographic version.
Oh yeah, okay. So this is another thing that we're kind of like working with and playing with is we really want the deck to be holographic. Here's Death. Oh, this is a good one to show.
Really fun.
So we found a holographic company that prints holographic cards. Come on, Aaron, you're really good at this. You want to take it over? Thank you.
As I drop it.
There's a company that prints holographic cards, but in order to get them printed in holographic, we actually have to order a huge batch of them because it's really expensive to do a case by case basis. So we're planning on launching a pre-order over the next launching it hopefully in the next couple of days or so, and we'll just flow with it and just stay tuned. That'll probably go for about a month till the end of November roughly. And that's all right. You want to show some more? Well, I just talk about them. And sort of the idea is if we can sell enough of them, we're aiming for 5,000. If we can sell 5,000 decks, then we can upgrade all of the cards to being holographic. And it's sort of my dream for Patch Tarot to be holographic. Because they're really, really cool on that holographic version. It's a little hard to see with the with the light and the camera and everything like that.
I'm sure they can make sense of what's going on.
Well, I mean on the particular, yeah. But that's sort of the whole story with them, and it's been we pretty much the idea though is like regardless of holographic or not, we want to get these into your hands by Christmas or by the holidays, depending on where in the world you are and what you celebrate.
Yeah.
But that's sort of like that's Patch Tarot, and it's available almost now, very very soon. Very soon. So yeah. Ria was sending some questions, but if there's any other questions about them, I could talk for hours and hours. I guess the Book of Patch, we've got like a 500-page book that'll be available for free with the pre-order, which is like taking the stuff that's available on the website and like tripling the amount of information that's available, kind of stuff. So there's a lot of work that's been going into this.
Could I ask sort of a sobering question?
Yeah.
And I don't want to be like a buzzkill here, but for me, whenever you bring up divination and tarot and that kind of stuff, I feel like for a lot of people it's going to be sort of an unknown, and there's lots of negative connotations with that kind of stuff, right?
Totally.
Can I take this?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
if there's something, I just want to draw a simple analogy is all it is, because everybody's going to speak of tarot or any level of divination with exactly what you just said. There's always that as a sort of takeaway. Well, what if it's the devil or something, right? Mm-hmm. What if you ask like this? So these cards, if anyone's familiar with what an archetype is, it's a sort of universal force or flow that at any given point can be flowing through you and has a natural tendency through you. Now, what divination is we take the subtle understanding, but let's just say even just faith or loose understanding of what's going on here, and just expressing it and saying, if there's a way for me to communicate with the world, use this set of archetypes to tell me what I need to know right now. It's a simple question, and a simple assessment. It's a simple sort of, this is going to be something that is taken by the hand of universe or God or whatever it is that you want to call your sacred thing. And it's using that as a medium through which to divine information to you. That's what divination is. You could use stones and just assign meanings to them. Now, here's the thing about morphogenic fields, and this is what Rupert Sheldrake was sort of alluding to, is that, and I'll get back to the original point here, SOS was in Morse code is drilled into everybody in some level or way, shape, or form, especially in military. When it comes down to understanding how to use Morse code, they took two groups of people, both of which were going to be learning this Morse code. One was fake, one was real. And the fake one took longer to learn for people than the real one. So the point of this is that when you take tarot it's an already more understood in the collective unconscious, because so many people use them over a large tenure. So it's able to be used a little bit better. The dialogue there will be understood by you a little bit easier because more people have been using it and understanding it and divining through it, allowing that divine energy to flow through you. So that hopefully can dispel a little bit of that kind of misdirection of context. It's just really simple. It's just know that you're speaking to whatever your highest heart is feeling. You're speaking to love directly. Use the card to speak through to you.
Okay.
A very small little
Thank you, Eddie.
answer to your question there, Philip. That's why we're making a tarot series, is to dispel a lot of those myths, and we're gonna have like open this conversation probably time and time again to get clear on, like, that's one of the reasons why we started the Kabbalah series, of like understanding a little bit more of the history and the depth of where this information is coming from, so that you can look at this as just a way in which the energies, the nature of this reality can sort of like manifest in, as Eddie was saying, archetypes that you can learn from and understand, and use this as a tool to help you make further sense of your experiences without looking at it from this fear-based or judgmentalized perspectives of this having some like unforeseen negative consequences or something, because that's a superstition that the church invented to scare people away from like understanding the nature of reality so that they can keep power control systems. I want to get there.
I want to also, just because we've all been taking turns, and I have to answer it too after, tarot is just like I made it and stuff. So the whole thing, there's the whole thing. It's a map. That's it. Like, it's a map. And like, you can choose to read the map any way that you want to, but really what it's a map of is everything. And again, like, you can use it, it's a map to ascension if you choose to use it that way. Now again, you can get lost in like, does this person does this person like me? No, oh no, or bad luck or whatever. And it's like that's a very minimal use of this power. And so like, it's really, when you look at it, like, if you want to go somewhere physical, you get a GPS or a map, you punch in the coordinates and you go. This is really the same thing. And you say, like, how do I heal my emotions? How do I work through this challenge? How do I live my dream? Draw, shuffle it, draw a card, or lay out some, and like, learn the archetypes, learn the layers of it. And it really describes different aspects of you, essentially as a mirror, to bring your attention and your awareness to this part of you and work with that inner energy. And that's really it. Like, using it as a divination tool, again, is not its purpose. It is a map, and you can follow it if you choose to. And that's really, that's like the core idea behind it. And divination is like a fun thing you can do along the way, I guess, with it.
For sure. Yeah. I totally agree that like there's basically a universal, like, archetypal like story that everyone in the universe is living out to some degree or not. So it's great if we can use it as a tool to explore those different aspects of ourselves, but it becomes dangerous in my opinion, and lots of people's opinions, when you start to, like you said, seek guidance from this shuffling of the decks. Like, when it becomes a guiding factor rather than just a way to learn, then you can start altering,
I might suggest that they're the same thing.
Links in the archetypal point to another archetypal type by just, when you pull a card, it's kind of like, what should I do next in the journey, or what's coming up ahead of you? And yeah, so where you're at with a card is kind of like where you are in the moment, I guess. And then, is that right? Does that make sense?
I mean, yeah, because look, if you're looking, let's say, here's an example. You're looking for guidance. Let's draw a card, right? And you say, give me some guidance. I got it again. I get the sun, right? So the nature of the sun card is like all about illumination, right? And like shining your light and giving. So again, the card's not telling you to do anything. You're interpreting your own actions based on symbology. It would be the same thing if you close your eyes and go, show me the way, God, and just point me to the first, like give me guidance based on the first thing that I see. And I open my eyes and I see like this camera. Like I can extrapolate ideas in my mind about what that could mean by looking at the camera. Now, the only difference is that this is just based on the 4 elements, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, the 5th element of the soul, and how they all fit together. So there's more kind of cosmic astrology, numerology, symbology, Kabbalah, all kind of interwoven. But again, it's really just reflecting your consciousness and your interpretation. So you can't blame, if you made a bad decision based on something that you drew in a card, you cannot blame the cards. You have to blame your ability to interpret them, or your, like where your heart's really at.
I think that's exactly what Philip's saying.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean, did I misinterpret that, Philip? I think that's what you were going with the idea that if, just like anything, don't blindly obey something, interpret it and observe it, right?
Right, yeah, don't let the card be your authority. Let yourself be your own authority. And I think the main problem most people have with these types of systems is that, any fundamentalist Christian would say that, my only authority is God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And how do I know that this?
They're all in here.
Yeah, right. How do I know that the Holy Spirit is guiding the session? How do I? It gets very
a direct reflection of you.
Why would it be anything else?
Right.
I think if you feel it in your heart, yeah.
As a Christian, I have a Christian background. As a Christian, the general belief is that you are a piece of God, that God is in everything, that literally he breathes life into everything. And so if you're divining the cards, doesn't that mean God is reading them?
For sure. I mean, that's a profound insight. That's one that not everybody shares. So it's good that we can think that way,
Hey, I was just wondering, what's your guys' favorite verses from the Bible? John 3:16?
That's kind of a weird question. Verses taken out of context don't really actually.
John 1:1.
Nicholas,
beginning there was
like 90-degree turns, like just I have to like kudos for it, honestly, like
Psalms 82. That's mine.
Psalms is good stuff.
There's a verse in the Bible that says, God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truthfulness. That's in John.
I like that.
I resonate with that.
So I don't remember the which one it is, but mine is in the Book of Mormon, and I don't remember it exactly, but it has to do with that everything you do, as long as you're following God, no matter what you do, if the earth could open up to swallow you up, the oceans could try to drown you, even man could pass the death penalty over you and try to take your life. No matter what, as long as you are with me, I am with you, and nothing will defeat you.
Wow. But that's not from the actual Bible, or is that from the Mormon Bible?
Well, it's not the Mormon Bible. It's the Book of Mormon. We have the Bible and the Book of Mormon as Mormons. So we follow both.
Is anyone here baptized?
What's that?
I'm baptized.
I was baptized before I was.
Baptism signifies Christ's death. When you get baptized into water, water is a form of death. So when you get baptized, we put to death our old man, or the old creation. And when we rise out of the water, it's the new creation. It's the resurrection of Christ is when you come out of the water.
Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. And I think that would be one of my favorites.
Now, I'm gonna say also we're approaching the end of the call here, but I want to bring this back around and again just sort of describing sort of these archetypes and how they all kind of fit together, because we were talking about it with Tarot and what can I say? It's on my mind. You just said water is the gateway of death, right? So, okay, you have it there. So this is a card called the Hanged Man. I'm just going to describe this like this parallel here. This is absolutely brilliant. You'll love this. Okay. Each card is connected to a element, Hebrew letter, or an aspect of the Kabbalah, a number, and what have you, some symbols. This one in particular is connected to water. And if you look at the picture on it, you know, it shows, hopefully we can get it to focus.
Is that Peter?
It shows kind of a Jesus-like or Christ-like figure hanging upside down on the cross, non-holographic version, over top of a snake. You've got this kind of rainbow lightning storm, sunny sky kind of energy.
That's after the flood, Noah. Oh, because of flood.
Why are we talking about this? Okay, because the next card is death. And you just said water is the gateway to death. So water, the gateway to death, which actually leads to resurrection. I don't know if we have that card present handy. It'd be easier to find easier to find in that one because there's less. But the point being, like, you know, everything that you just described, Nicholas, in the Bible and the way, like baptism as this thing, right? Like the nature of water, and what is described by this card is that surrender, the descent, the emotional submersion, as well as the idea of baptism completely, but like all of the layers of what water means, right? Like the emotional, water is a symbol of the emotion.
Water also signifies life. It has a twofold meaning.
Right. And again, you're speaking exactly to this idea, because by going through the death process, you come out with resurrection. We looked at this one before. Death is the gateway to rebirth. And that's exactly the process of what's described by Hanged Man, the surrender, the submersion, the descent into yourself to experience the dissolve, the dissolution of who you think you are, your ego, like the breakdown of
self in the flesh,
in order to awaken the spiritual self and recreate who you are in the resurrection card. So again, that's just 3 of the sequence of 22 of the major arcana, but everything that you just described as a part of the Bible, as a part of this like this fundamental Christian tenet, is like woven into the fabric of the Tarot. And so this is like a very ancient understanding that goes so much beyond the idea of, you know, of divination or you know, of hocus pocus and all of this stuff. Like it really is like astrologically tethered and connected to so much more. I mean, you can look at the nature of them too. I don't know if you know about astrology, but death is connected to Scorpio. Then resurrection is connected to Sagittarius. And so Eddie could probably speak to that one because I think he's a Sagittarius. You can see how they do, like Scorpio's all about death and sex, and that's what we're talking about today. And so
we are.
When you really dive in, I guess in conclusion, like when you really dive in to try and understand, not just like, you know, use it as a tool in this way, but really understanding why are these cards correlated in these ways? What do these symbols mean? Why are they there? You know, it's very, very purposeful, and nothing is taken lightly. It goes back to ancient Egypt, to ancient Hebrew. It is
also when the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea, that signifies baptism as well. It's like passing through the Red Sea, the water of death.
Exactly.
And they went into the wilderness, which means like after we get saved and we get baptized, we go across the Red Sea. But after the Red Sea, the children of Israel were in the wilderness. So wilderness is where we have to just try to get into the good land. And the good land is Christ. The land of Canaan is Christ.
Right.
And also when Jesus got pierced on his side, when he was on the cross, out came blood and water. And the blood is for our redemption, for our salvation. And the water is for our life supply, because the water is a spirit.
Very good. Well, with that, everybody, I wish to thank you all so very much for being here on this call. It was absolutely just profound, actually, probably one of the best calls that I think we've had. Just it's specifically because of the depth I feel like we went to, and the sensitivity and the level of listening and communication that we went to was, I mean, even just speaking for myself, profoundly healing. And thank you all for being here and contributing your presence to creating this space as we bring it back full circle. Thank you so much for being here and for watching, for everybody watching too. Thank you.
Oh, so I'd like to say something real quick. In a few days, well, they're still trying to figure out the flights, but in a few days, I'm going to be heading to Kuwait. So I'll be
with you, David, and carry it with you.
Take that. Yeah. Share it everywhere you go. Shine the light.
Will do. Thank you.
All right.
Eddie, I'll get with you.
Peace to all of you.
Adios.
Bye, guys. We'll see you next time.
Kudos, guys. Peace.
Amen. Namaste.